Okay, class, we're going to go ahead and take a look now at parts 2 and 3 of your worksheet, mini worksheet. Keep in mind that in this particular case, we're going to be adding and subtracting polynomials, and it's not a really big deal as far as the way you do it. It's pretty much the same thing that you did when you were collecting like terms. So let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of problems there. So we're going to start off with 2b right there. Well, actually 2a. And we're going to take a look at this right here. Essentially what you're doing is you're matching up with the other polynomial. In this case, I want you to add this polynomial with this polynomial. Now, in order for you to do that, you need to go ahead and take off the parentheses. And remember, you only do this in addition. When you're dealing with subtraction, when you're subtracting polynomials, it's a little bit different. So we're going to go ahead and do the same thing for the second polynomial. Now remember, when we were collecting like terms, essentially what we're dealing with is we were matching the variables and also the exponents. So in this particular case, we could collect 2x minus 3x. So this becomes 2 minus 3, which is negative 1x, or just negative x. So those are taken care of. And then we collect negative 12 plus 22. Once again, negative 12 plus 22. We subtract, keep the sign of the larger one. So in this case, it'll be positive 10. And that would be your answer for that one. So it's not a big deal. You're just essentially going to match them and collect like terms. In our second one is a little bit more challenging. We have more parts to it, but it's essentially the same thing. If there's nothing in front of the parentheses, if there's no number, there's no negative sign, we could go ahead and drop them off. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and drop off the parentheses for the first polynomial. So it'll just be 5x squared minus 3x minus 6 plus, and we're going to do the same thing for the second one. We're going to go ahead and drop them off as well. So this will be 2x squared minus 8x minus 3. Now that we have the parentheses off, we're going to go ahead and match them up just exactly like we did on our previous one. In this case, we start off with the 5x squared. So we're looking for another term that has x and square. So it'll be this second one right there. Actually, on the second polynomial, it'll be this one right there. So we're going to add them. This is positive 5 and this is positive 2. So 5 plus 2, that'll give you 7. So it'll be 7x squared. Then we're going to go ahead and take a look at the next term, which is the negative 3x. So you're looking for another x, and you have it right there, negative 8x. So negative 3 minus 8, that'll give you negative 11x. So that takes care of those two. And finally, we have negative 3 minus 6, which will give you negative 9. So your answer will be 7x squared minus 11x minus 9. So those two examples right there deal with addition. The next two examples come from part 3. So I'm going to join them together just so we could save some time there. So in this particular case, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the first polynomial. There's nothing in front of it, so we're going to go ahead and drop them off, parentheses. So it'll be 6x to the third plus 5x squared minus 3. And for the second polynomial, we're going to go ahead and distribute the negative sign. So that means that the second polynomial, the signs are going to be the exact opposite of what they are right now. So this negative 2x to the third will now become positive 2x to the third. This positive 3x squared will now become minus 3x squared. The negative x will now become positive x. Remember, we're distributing that negative sign. And finally, that positive 1 will become negative 1. So once again, review that. There's nothing that we could do with the first one, but in the second one, went ahead and distribute the negative sign. All right, so we take a look now, and we're going to go ahead and start collecting. I shouldn't have started right there, but let's take a look at the first one. X to the third is the highest power, so you search for another one, and you have it right there. Once again, you're matching the x's, the variables, and the powers. So all you're doing is just adding or subtracting the coefficient. Remember, the coefficient is the number in front of the variable. So 6 plus 2 will be 8. So it'll be 8x to the third. So that takes care of that. We're going to do the same thing for the second one. We have x squared. So we have 5x squared, and we have another x squared right there. So 5 minus 3, that gives you positive 2. So this will be positive 2x squared. So that takes care of those two. In this case, if we take a look, we have the x. Remember, we have to go in descending order, so this will be x. That takes care of that. And then finally, we have negative 3 minus 1, and negative 3 minus 1 will give you negative 4. And that'll be your final answer right there. Don't worry about the fractional ones. We're going to do those a little bit later on. As far as the decimals are concerned, the same route. If there's nothing in front of the parentheses, you drop them off. So on that first polynomial, we're going to drop them off. And on the second one, remember, we have that negative sign there, so that's going to change right there. So we're going to distribute the negative sign to all of the terms right there. So this will be now minus x to the fourth. This will now be positive 6.2x squared. And this will be negative 2.2x. We don't need to distribute to anything afterwards. And once again, we start collecting like terms. X to the fourth. Once again, since this doesn't have a coefficient, it's understood to be 1. So we're going to go ahead and subtract it. 2.3 minus 1. That'll be 1.3 x to the fourth. So that takes care of those two. Then you go in the next highest, which is the x to the third. There's no other x to the third. So we go ahead and bring it down. So it's minus 4x to the third. And then the x squared. So we have 6.2x squared. So we bring that down. So that takes care of that. Then we have the single x, the 5x minus the 5.2x. Those two we could go ahead and collect. So if we subtract those two, we're going to end up with positive 2.8x. And once again, that'll be your final answer for this one right here. So adding and subtracting polynomials is not that difficult. We're going to take a look at a couple of more examples in our next part.